Our children are considered the most vulnerable members of society because of the fact that their physical, mental, and emotional development makes them uniquely susceptible to poverty, abuse, neglect, and environmental hazards. Let me be clear. Today, our subject is focused on the children in our lives and in our communities. But this isn't a Children's Day program by any means. Our moving targets this morning are the adults in those communities in which our children live and develop. Why? Because our children are dependent on adults to provide for them the social structures and safe communities for them to develop and thrive in. It's on you and me. It's on you and me. Due to their dependency on adults, limited agency, societal breakdowns of norms and values, and the inability to choose their circumstances, our children, your children, are disproportionately affected by poor and unsafe living conditions and predatory actions and actors. This is not a new revelation or a recent documented study. This is a verified historical fact that goes all the way back to the days of antiquity. In the third edition of the book, A Survey of the New Testament, the author, Robert H. Gundry, states the following concerning ancient morals and exposure of children during the time of Christ on pages 50 and 51. I need to let you know, I'm not a play preacher. I give it to you raw. That's my ministry. That's my personality. So here's the truth in some of its ugliness. It reads, in the New Testament epistles, sexual sins usually had a list of prohibited vices. Every conceivable kind of immorality was attributed to pagan gods and goddesses. Prostitution by both men and women was a well-recognized institution. Slave girls often fell victim to this debauchery. To gain money, some men prostituted their own wives and their children. Most of society accepted pederasty and other homosexual behavior. As we know from excavations at Pompeii, obscene pictures and carvings often decorated the exterior walls of houses. Divorce was easy, frequent, and acceptable. In fact, divorce documents are among the most numerous of papyrus remains. Murder was common. Parents often exposed their infants, in essence abandoned them in the city forum, on a hillside, or in an alley. One letter from a husband to a wife reads, and I quote, "Should you bear a child, if it is a boy, let it live. If it is a girl, expose it." Often exposed girls were picked up to be reared as temple prostitutes. In fairness, now, it should be noted that despite the prevalence of low morality, decent people were not wholly lacking in the Greco-Roman world. We now know from the Epstein files that the more things change, come on, you know where I'm going with this, that the more things change, the more they remain the same. Children are often at risk of being exploited. Some may say, "Well, Pastor, that's too detailed. That's too graphic." Really? I'm amazed that the wicked can be as big and bad as they want to be. And the church that's supposed to speak out against these things, so worried about people's sensitivities, though we are aware of it, some of us watch it at home. We can't speak on it. We say time is running out. Well, when will we be able to speak on it? You see, if you're the voice of God and the voice of reason and you're not speaking against these things, who is then speaking against these things? The devil's going to take up all the oxygen in the room. And so we have to speak the truth, because it's the truth that sets us free. It's the truth that lets us know that we are in a war, not in a casual stroll through the park. It's the truth that lets us know you better watch your children. Oh, you better watch your children. Google it sometimes. There's department store cameras that have, and news articles that have caught people trying to snatch people in a department store in London. A mother and her daughter were coming out of the store onto the street. And as a man was coming in, he literally grabbed the child. The child was with her mother. Picked the child, ripped it out of the mother's arms, and went running out of camera view down the street. Fortunately for that woman, the men behind her saw this and took off and accosted him and held him before the police came. But the child broke his leg, but thank God that's all it was. In another video, and I'm not going to show it because I'm not trying to scare you, but I'm trying to aware you, as in make you aware. You better watch your children. It was not just the mother, it was the father with the child. And a man walking up the street doubled back and snatched the child out of the father's hands and ran with the child. That's the world that we live in. And so I'm always blown away when I see people, or particularly when I see children and I don't see the parents. The other day, as Gary and I were passing out flyers for this day, we walked to the park across the street, and there was a bunch of kids on the monkey bars over there. But as we went up to the monkey bars, we stopped because we didn't see any parents. The parents were sitting in the car, unbeknownst to us. But what could we have done had we just snatched one of those kids and took off running? It was two women sitting in a car. Now is not the time. Wake up and be alert. We know, as I said earlier, from the Epstein files, that the more things change. That was back in the ancient days. No, that's happening today. Today. I don't believe that Epstein committed suicide. When you consider all the powerful men that were involved in it, I think someone decided he needed to be silenced. That's the world today. Oh, go ask 45 and 47 about it. You know there's accusations directly tying him in, but you're not going to see that. Oh, it's reported, but they lost the files. Pedophiles today. Children are often at risk of being exploited. If you have your Bibles, open it to Exodus chapter 1, verse 22, which is projected on the screen. Then Pharaoh gave this order to all his people: every boy, in essence, every Hebrew boy that is born, you must throw into the Nile, but let every girl live. You see, the good old days weren't so good if you were born a Hebrew boy in Pharaoh's Egypt, because Hebrew boys were systematically targeted for death for the crime of simply being born a Hebrew boy. Oh, come on now, people with varying shades of red, yellow, brown, and black. You've got to wake up and realize that a strike is held against you for being the shaded other in white America. We know that the song says, God bless America, but we also know that the sentiment, because the truth will set us free, we also know that the sentiment doesn't necessarily mean God bless you, other American. Since the beginning of mankind, freshly expelled from the Garden of Eden, grieving parents had to face the bitter reality that their best efforts to safely insulate and protect their children from hurt, harm, and danger oftentimes wasn't enough. Can you imagine? Can you even begin to fathom the horror and pain Adam and Eve felt when they discovered that Abel, their youngest son, was dead and that he was killed by his older brother? Look, again, I'm not trying to scare you this morning, but I am trying to aware you, because we have to be made aware that the task of parenting and protecting our children in an evil and falling world is a task that's too great for us. It's too big for you. It's too big for me to do on our own. There's an often quoted African proverb that says, it takes a village to raise a child. How many of you have heard that? Raise your hands. Yes, it takes a village to raise a child. But there is a Bible with 66 books in it that not only says, but in addition shows that it takes an almighty God to redeem, reform, sanctify, and prepare that village to properly raise that aforementioned child. You see, when everything is broken, the village is broken. It takes God to impart in us that which is light, because we are walking in a world full of darkness. In fact, Psalms 127 verse 1 says, except the Lord build the house. Come on, you and I are going at it with our hammers. Except the Lord build the house, we labor in vain that build it. Except the Lord guards the city, the watchman keeps awake in vain. What is that saying? It is saying that human effort is futile without divine intervention and protection. Oh, we can put all the programs in place that we want. Oh, we can have the watchman watch the city, but it means nothing if God isn't watching the city. You and I did not create ourselves. God placed you in the position that you're in. You didn't educate yourself. God allowed you opportunity to make a wise choice and receive an education while you could. Our ancestors back in the days of slavery, some of them were brilliant, way more brilliant than anybody in this room, but they were still, by circumstance, just a slave. So stop thinking you pulled yourself up by your own bootstraps, or that you've accomplished something by your own brilliance. It is the grace and mercy of God. God smiles on us and opens doors that we cannot open on our own. Those of you that are here this morning with your children are here because you love them. Some of you may be Seventh-day Adventist members of this church. Some of you may not be members of this church. Some of you may be practicing Christians, and some of you may not be Christians at all, but you're here this morning because you love these children and you recognize that the world isn't right. You recognize that the love of many has grown cold, and that man's every thought is evil, that up is now called down, and down is now called up, that right is now considered wrong, and wrong is now considered right. And as reported on the nightly news, and this blows my mind. As reported on the nightly news, you recognize that there's a multinational, geopolitical, economic, religious, civil tempestuous storm that is brewing off our shore. I just found out when Viola made the announcement today that the United States is at war with Iran. How many of you knew that? That wasn't a throwaway statement. I looked at my brother in the back and I said, Alex, did you know that? He said, yes, last night. You see how fast things can change? And so now if you've got sons and daughters, if you've got a cousin named Pookie that's in the Navy or in the Army or in the Marine Corps, in the Air Force, they're in harm's way. If you've got a niece named Janet, she's in harm's way. And don't think, well, she's stationed on the West Coast, so she won't go. Really? You don't understand the military then. They will move you around and send you to where they need you to be. The first carrier battle group that was there was from the Abraham Lincoln. I worked on that ship in North Island just last year before its deployment in harm's way. We need God. We need God. The worldwide waters of cultural circumstance are troubled, and its waves and fierce undercurrents are making those waters dangerous for our babies to try to navigate without our deliberate and faith-focused help. Now is not the time for your grandchildren to know less about the Lord and being exposed to God and his ways and his people than you were. I have found, even in my own family, my extended family, that there are those in this generation coming behind us that don't know as much as those that are ahead of them concerning God and his mercy and his ways. You see, my grandmother, my grandaunt, my godmother, they made sure that all the children were going to church. Some of us came up and some of us are stuck with us, and some of us, and the devil will lull you to sleep. And so here it is. Your kids have less exposure to the knowledge of the true and living God than you do. And yet the world that they're coming up in is rougher and more dangerous than the world that you and I came up in. They know everything else. The devil's always going to give you everything else. There's always going to be something. I didn't understand it as a child. I hated it as a child. Well, man, how come I can't play Little League Baseball on Saturday? How come I can't do Pop Warners on Saturday? How come I can't watch Soul Train? I didn't understand it, but I'm appreciative of it now. So how is it? Or maybe it's because of this. Maybe it's because our babies are having babies. Everybody's having babies out of wedlock younger. And they still want to get their ride on. They still want to get their swerve on. They still want to get their party on. So mama and daddy ain't as locked in as our parents were, even if they had us out of wedlock. It was another generational thing. It was they understood, it's time for you to grow up now. You got kids. You got kids. You were big and bad enough to have them on your own. Well, then you got to raise them. You got to raise them. Babies aren't just that which we love to pass around and let our friends hold and cuddle and blah. You've got to raise them to do what's right. You got to put in the work. You got to sacrifice. You got to show up at school when you don't want to show up at school, huh? And you got to wear them out when they need to be worn out. I wasn't always the best of children. Oh, I got beat down by my mom on the bus, the steps of a bus, because her motto was, wherever you act up, that's where we're going to cut up. Huh? And those of you, I'm just sharing. I'm just being real. Those of us with melanin. You know, when we used to go in the stores and we would see our brothers and sisters of a lighter hue and their little child was, I don't want to do this, Mom, and fussing their mom out. And our mother would look at us and like, boy, if you ever. Because with melanin, shades of color, we always understood, no, that didn't go down like that. That was our lighter brothers and sisters. Get out of my room! Slamming the door on their parents. We tried that one time, and the next day when we came home, all the doors to our room was off the hinges. And my stepfather said, understand, that ain't your room. You ain't on the lease. You ain't paying rent. That's the room that I'm letting you occupy. It ain't your room. When you get out and you're paying rent and your name is on the lease, then you can talk about get out. How is it that the children are now running the parents? Up is now down and down is now up. You and I think that this thing isn't real. Evil moves around us. The biggest deception Satan ever pulled is to make us think he doesn't exist. And so he's working all the time, creating tension, breaking up stuff. So I was listening to a radio news program about 3 weeks ago, and the newscaster said this, and I paused. He said, talking about where America is going. And I'm not being political, I'm being spiritual. Because the church is quiet. But there's also a section of the church that God said he would send them strong delusion, having a form of godliness but denying the power thereof. In other words, there's a great majority in the Christian body today that for all of their talk, they talk a good game. But when you look at their fruits, you don't see anything that looks like Jesus. How is it that a great majority of the church today follows a guy who has nothing of the qualities of Jesus and will argue you down? God said that this would be a sign in the last days, having a form of godliness but denying the power. In other words, talking it but not walking it. And these things are unfolding in front of us. But we are so caught up in the world and in the rat race. Satan sends so much stuff to keep us occupied that we're not focused on Christ. We're not in our Bibles. And he lulls us to sleep. He lulls us to sleep. And you do know that whenever the predator jumps out, it's too late. When the lion reveals himself, when the tiger reveals himself, when the crocodile at the bank shore, you don't even see him in the water. You just might see a pair of eyes if you're paying attention. But when he makes his move at the gazelles or the zebras that come to the bank, it's usually too late. And some of us are waiting. We keep waiting. Well, I'm going to get in at the last moment. Be careful, because you might come in and find the door is locked and you are forever locked out. On the river, on the bank, on the river, on the bank. I'm trying to reach the parents. Because we don't know when God is going to come back, but until God comes back, we have to occupy. And if we're going to occupy, we have to ensure that there's a safety net for our kids so that the devil doesn't just sweep them all off into perdition. We've got to be real. So here it is. And it says in Exodus 2, verses 1 through 4, and a man of the house of Levi went and took as a wife a daughter of Levi. Church folk marrying church folk. So the woman conceived and bore a son. And when she saw that he was a beautiful child, she hid him 3 months. But when she could no longer hide him, she took an ark of bulrushes for him, dubbed it with asphalt and pitch, put the child in it, and laid it in the reeds by the river's bank. And his sister, she assigned his sister to watch what should happen to your brother, what would be done to him. The slave-despised couple who saw this child as beautiful, what that means is, do you see your child as beautiful today? That doesn't just mean physically beautiful. It means they saw this child worthy of the life that God had given it and would have for it. And in that moment, this couple, slave despised, humble, they didn't have anybody pull any strings. They didn't have a bank account or had connections to a lawyer that could go and advocate for them. They just had faith. They made the decision that this child would not be a statistic. That this child, this beautiful child, was worthy of the life and the breath that God had given it. And they made a decision towards that. Faith. Faith is just not rhetoric. Faith is not words. What is faith? At the risk of their own personal lives and at the risk of their household, they had 2 other children. They decided that this child was going to live if they had anything to say in it. She hid him for 3 months. They had to keep this child quiet because what do you think would happen if your neighbor has a child, a baby boy, and they had to drown him in the river? Pharaoh's forces, the popo, the ice king, took the child, your boy, took him down by the river and just threw him in the bay and just drowned him. What do you think would happen, even though you were friends and neighbors, when they heard, what is that? Is that crying I heard? They scope it out. They come and look through your window and they see that you got a baby boy. You think they're going to go, oh, we're going to keep that secret? Come on. That ain't human nature. That ain't even human nature in you and I, and we're supposed to be church folk. This was church folk. It was in the Goshen where the Israelites were kept. Church folk. That child had to be kept quiet because if anybody heard that they had a boy and they had just lost their boy, oh, they're going to make sure if I'm hurting, you're going to hurt too. How do you get to keep yours and I don't get to keep mine? Real talk? Is that real? Come on, you know it's real. Why should they get to keep their son and we had to give up our son? 911. I just like to let you know that Jochebed and her husband, we think they got a baby. I don't know what. I'm just saying. Click. But they made a choice. They made a choice that this child would not become another statistic, that this child would not become another tragedy. They believed instead that the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, the God who made heaven and earth, would hear their prayers, read their hearts, and beholding their faith manifested in their actions. You do know that faith without works is dead. Don't tell me about your faith. Show me your faith. Abraham, you say you love me, sacrifice your son Isaac for me. Faith is made manifest by our works. Yeah, but God knows my heart. God knows our heart. And I say it all the time. I really should just stop saying it. You should know it already. God knows our hearts, but we don't. The scripture says our hearts are deceitfully wicked. Who can trust it? You and I can't even trust ourselves. But God looked at this couple and he saw by their actions and he saw by their faith and he heard their prayers and he was moved by it. They had decided that the tragedy and common fate, the destruction of Israelite boys, would not, though it was engulfing everyone else in their community, would not engulf their youngest son. You see, parents, whether you are a couple or whether you're a single mom or a single dad, you have got to make a choice. That despite what's all going out in the streets, this child, this boy, this girl is not going to get caught up in that. You have got to make that decision. They can't make it for themselves. Parents, you've got to make it for them. No, you're not going to that. Why? Why, Mom, can't I go? Why, Dad, can't? Because it's not for you to go every place everybody else goes. God has got a purpose. I've got an investment. Why are you going to let street kids lecture and influence your kids? Why is it that your kids' friends have more influence in their lives than you do? When I was coming up, my stepdad, he always made sure that our house, it wasn't a clubhouse. He said, no, you don't have your friends coming over disrespecting, putting their legs up on the furniture. This ain't the hangout spot. But he always made sure we could bring our friends over. Why? Because he wanted to see who I was hanging out with. He wanted to see who my brother was hanging out with. He wanted to see who my sister was hanging out with, because he would read through them. See, it was all laugh, laugh, play, play with your friends. But my dad and my mom, they were checking out the kind of friends that we was hanging out with. Do you do that? Do you know who your kids' friends are? Do you know what most kids' friends will tell your kids, why are you listening to your parents? Come on, how many of you heard that coming up? Raise your hand. Come on now, I'm trying to reach somebody. Let's talk, let's dialogue back and forth. We've all heard that. How many of us at some point in our lives listen to that? Raise your hand. Tell the truth. My mom and dad was like, no, we need to know who you hanging out with. We need to see them. Don't tell me that they're good. I need to bring them in and let me check them out. Discerning eye. Because birds of a feather flock together. You got to put the work in. And so they laid that ark by the river. The river was called the Nile River, known for its resident Nile crocodiles, the second largest species in the world. The river was life for the Egyptians, but it was a life on the edge of danger. It was a life much like the life you and I live today, and our children will have to live and navigate tomorrow. Yes, we are. Jesus says, look, we are in this world, but we are not to be of this world. The Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. We all got a thirst for life. But I was reading this book on shepherding from an actual shepherd. And he said, and from a shepherd's point of view, he was breaking down the 23rd Psalm. See, we read that stuff, but we don't let the Holy Spirit let it percolate in our. Do you know he leadeth me beside the still waters? Why beside the still waters? Because if you've ever seen sheep got spindly legs, round bodies, and wool, that if they go by quick drinking waters, they need water for life. But if they go by fast-moving waters with their spindly legs, if they fall in and they absorb all of that water, they get top-heavy and they will drown. Water is life. But the good shepherd says, I know you need this water to sustain you in life, but don't drink from this fast-moving river with its steep and slippery banks. He leads them to still waters where it's safe. God wants you and me to live. He wants us to experience life to the fullest. But not every experience, though it may be exciting, there's nothing more exciting than drowning. Everything that looks good is not good. So the Nile River, yes, it was life for the Egyptians, but it was full with Nile crocodiles. And yet, that's where God has Jochebed put her child. Tells her daughter to watch her from the banks. God said to the Hebrew people, wade in the water. But the family, friends, and neighbors replied, but the waters are dangerous. God is telling Jochebed, this is the way to save your child. Wade in the water. But when they go to their friends and even hint at it at the family, they the waters are dangerous. God says to them again, wade in the water, children. To which Moses' parents reply, but why, God? Why are you leaving us with this only hard and frightful option? And the Lord responds by saying, I want you to know that you can wade in dangerous waters whenever the living God, is with you. Isaiah 43:2, and I'm almost done, says, when you pass through the waters, I will be with you. And through the rivers, they shall they shall not overflow you. When you walk through the fire, you shall not be burned, nor shall the flames scorch you. Point one. Exodus chapter 2, verses 5 and 7. God's timing is impeccable, and his attention to detail is perfect. Verse 5 through 7. Exodus chapter 2. Then the daughter of Pharaoh came down to bathe at the river, and her maidens walked along the riverside. And when she saw the ark among the reeds, she sent her maid to get it. And when she opened it, she saw the child, and behold, the baby wept. Let me tell you how awesome God is. For 3 months, they had to keep that child quiet. Keep that child quiet. Because if any of their neighbors discovered that they had a baby and they lost their own, they were going to drop the dime quick. Shh. Always trying to make sure that he didn't get still or cry out loud. And he was quiet. But when Pharaoh's daughter came, he was already in the basket, floating among the reeds, and she saw it. What is that? Go out and get it. They go out and get it. She opens it up and she sees this beautiful Hebrew boy. And it says, and behold, the baby wept. Now you need to understand, many times when we look at miracles, we get caught up on the event of the miracle. But many times the real miracle lies in the fact, not how big or spectacular the miracle is, but in the timing. God's timing was perfect. That boy cried at the right moment. What happens to most women when they see a newborn baby and the baby cries? Doesn't it evoke a maternal instinct in that woman? And so immediately her heart went out to the child. Moses cried at the right time. Had he cried 3 months earlier, drowned in the Nile. Had he cried going to the Nile or just a basket in the Nile before she got there, it might have made so much of a ruckus that even the alligators was like, what's going on? What's happening? Predators might have, what is that? He was quiet until God brought all of these things together. And when Pharaoh's daughter opened it up, that's when the baby cried. At the perfect moment. You need to understand, God is never late. We're early. You want to know a miracle? Think about it. The Red Sea. Some people will try to explain, well, this happened and it caused, in the Sea of Reeds, it caused an earthquake and it caused it to block the water flowing in the block. I don't know about all of that. But I do know that the real miracle is that the Red Sea parted when the children of Israel needed to go through. Come on now. Come on now. Why are you so quiet, saints of God? How many times has God pulled your carcass out of the fire at the right time? God's timing is perfect. That's the miracle. And behold, the baby wept, and behold, the baby wept, and behold, the baby wept. And then it says, so she had compassion on him and said, this is one of the Hebrew children. The timing of a miracle is often considered as miraculous as the event itself because it showcases precise divine orchestration rather than mere coincidence. When God puts your stuff together, he puts it together. He brings all of these things. And everything has to arrive on time, not 2 minutes late or 2 minutes early. Miracles are not just acts of supernatural power, but are perfectly timed to reveal purpose, foster faith, and provide help exactly when needed, often at the last possible minute. Let's look at this. And then we're done. The last minute factor. Miracles often occur when all human hope seems lost, or when a situation has reached a breaking point, making the intervention undeniably divine. How many of you have bitten your nails down like I have? God, if you don't do this, and at the very last critical moment, where there appears to be no way, tomorrow is the deadline. Or tonight. I'm trying to speak to somebody, encourage somebody. Years ago when I was a landlord, I had a friend of mine, Gary, you might know who I'm talking about, rented my front house. And she had gotten to a place where, her money was funny and her change was strange, and I carried her. And she always said, Anthony, I'm going to pay you back. I never asked her to pay me back. I'm going to pay you back. And then when I had gotten laid off and my stuff was shaky, and I was like, how am I going to pay my mortgage? My wife goes, hey, from the mailbox, a day before. Hey, this is a letter from so-and-so, because she had moved back to New Jersey. And it had been about a year and a half. Never bothered, never sweated her for it. And she said, I did always tell you I was going to pay you back, and now I have it. And so I'm sending this to you. And me and Terry got down and we praised the Lord, because that was God. How many of you have ever had an experience like that? You need to give God some praise. Give God some praise. God is doing miracles all the time, but because we got so much pride, we hate to admit that we were ever in any kind of situation where we needed help. That's pride. But don't you know that your testimonies encourage somebody else? We overcome, we encourage a struggling brother and sister with our testimonies, because if God did it then, He will do it again. God stretches you out. So there's the last minute factor, perfecting the moment. Divine timing ensures a miracle occurs at the exact moment. It will have the maximum impact or meaning. God wants to impress you and me so that we won't quickly forget, and so that we will understand that He is trustworthy. Purpose over convenience. The delay in a miracle is often intentional, designed to teach patience, build character, or prepare the recipient rather than a failure to act. The mirror of faith. The miracle of timing is often that you maintain faith despite the waiting, with the delay itself acting as a catalyst for personal growth. We talked about the Red Sea, how God waited. The sea didn't part early. It parted exactly when the Israelites were trapped between the water and Pharaoh's army, allowing them to escape just before capture. Lazarus, Jesus waited 4 days. Jesus waited 4 days. He delayed his visit intentionally to Lazarus for 2 days, allowing him to die so that the resurrection would be a greater demonstration of God's power. Water into wine at the wedding feast. Jesus waited to perform his first miracle until the hour had not yet come, ensuring it happened at the most significant moment. Come on. God is never late. Supernatural versus the natural. Even if a miraculous event can be explained naturally, the precision of his timing makes it supernatural. Ultimately, the timing of a miracle is often seen as a testament to God's sovereignty as he aligns circumstances to reveal his presence in the lives of those waiting. In the lives of those waiting. God's providence in the story of Jochebed, Miriam, and Pharaoh's daughter demonstrates his sovereignty by using ordinary people. How many of you are ordinary people? Raise your hands. Come on now. Yes, we're all ordinary. God will use ordinary people and even a political enemy to protect and prepare Moses as Israel's future deliverer. Let me tell you how good this thing is. How when God puts it together, you know it's God. You know, so when the baby cried, Pharaoh's young daughter, knowing that her father had issued a death sentence to all Hebrew boys, but she saw this little boy and the baby cried and it touched her heart. She determined right then and there to go against her father's edict. And then his daughter, then his oldest sister Miriam, man, Miriam was bad. She had it together enough that she understood the timing of the moment and then pops out at the right moment, not early, not late, and says, shall I go and get an Israelite woman to nurse this child? Woo! Woo! Because Pharaoh's daughter was trying to figure out, I just can't take this baby back into the palace. My dad would have it killed. And so she's trying, and just in that moment, Miriam comes out. Shall I go and get an Israelite housewife to take care of this child. You know where she went? She went back and got her mom. Whoa! Whoa! Come on. Her mom got paid to raise the son that she had placed on the Nile. She got paid to raise her son. And while she was raising her son on Pharaoh's dime, she made sure that Moses understood that he was Hebrew, not Egyptian. She made sure that Moses understood God has moved in a special way to save you. You were called to God's purpose. So that even when Moses became the prince of Egypt and went in, and you know all the prince had to be trained in all the strange and mystic arts and gods of the Egyptians, Moses never bent because he knew. He said, man, this is, but you can't accept the throne until you do. He said, he showed them that he knew it, but he says, I can't. This is foolishness. My God is Yahweh. You can't make me denounce him. My God, I'm a child of Abraham. My God is the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. He never forgot where he was. The little Hebrew slave girl that was taken by Naaman, she knew enough that when Naaman, her master, was suffering with leprosy, she said, all by herself, if only my master was in Israel, there's a prophet who can heal you. Train a child up in the way, and when they're old, they will not depart it. Are you training your children? That's what I ask you as I close. Grandparents, are you training your grandchildren? Because if the parents won't do it, man, back in the old days, come on. You knew grandparents. Come on, boy. Come on, get your clothes on. We're going to church. Get your brother and your sister. We're going to church. I've got books, Bible stories, and things as a child with my grandmother's handwriting in, that when she passed away, I saw it as a legacy. And when though none of my other cousins, because none of them really saw that, I went to my Aunt Pat and I said, Aunt Pat, can I have those? And don't you know that I'm about to pass those down to Taya's? Taya's coming. She said, Daddy, can I have that? I said, baby, yes, that's the legacy. It's got your great-grandmother's notes in it. Train a child. Train a child. Train a child. Here's the divine irony of the whole thing, and I'm done. Through this, God ensured that Moses was raised in his mother's care, learning his heritage while being educated with the resources of the Egyptian palace. God is so smooth when he put that thing together that Pharaoh saw this little boy and came to love him, never knowing that this was the one that was going to bring his kingdom all crashing down. God had the answer for his people right up under Pharaoh's nose. And that's why we've got to save our children. Because you never know what God has in store for that child. The future is our children. Make sure you place the future in God's hands. Now to him who is able to keep you from stumbling and present you faultless before the presence of his glory with exceeding joy. To God our Savior, who alone is wise, be glory and majesty, dominion and power, both now and forevermore.